Right then, welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to be looking at 5 ways United can save our season. Do I think we're going to win the league? No, right? Let's get that out of the bat straight up front. United will not win the league this season. Sorry to burst your bubble if you were sitting there thinking that that might be a possibility, but it's not. Relax, calm yourself, and get some brain power going. Now, that's not to say that we can't still have a successful season. I think United finishing back-to-back inside the top 4 and picking up another trophy, building on what we did last year, moving the squad more towards what we're looking for from Erik Ten Hag. I think that is a success. It'd be nice to finish a higher position than we did last year, but I said this in the summer, United could still have improved, but actually finish a lower position than we did this year because of circumstances surrounding other clubs and stuff. And I think that might actually be something likely. And I think finishing top 4 this year would be a big achievement for us and has to be the aim that we go for. Now, that being said, how do we actually save this season? First and foremost, I think you have to build around Hojlund. I think since we've seen him coming into the team, he has looked a little bit like a bit of a beacon of light. And I think even without scoring, his endeavour and potential is absolutely plain to see. United haven't really had a stable focal point, number 9, really since RVP, really. And Hojlund looks to have the ability to make that striker position his own at the club for a good decade. He could genuinely be here and really grow into what is expected from a Manchester United number 9. I think he's good enough to do it. Now, to make that work, he has to have a team and an environment that plays to his strengths. If he's going to be the number 1 goal scorer, and I think he could be, he needs to have players that are making opportunities for him. That's how a team works. They have to decide, are we going to be a team where we have 4 players getting 15 plus goals, or are we going to be a team where we have 1 player that gets 30 plus and these guys chip in with 10? What are we going to be? Because the way you set up those teams is extremely different. At just 20 years and 241 days, he became the youngest player to score in his first 2 Champions League appearances since Erling Howson back in 2019. He is the 4th player to have scored as many as 3 goals in 2 Champions League appearances for United after Dimitar Berbatov, Lukaku and Wayne Rooney. Rooney obviously needed just the 1 game to do that. Now, despite being injured going into the season, he has come into the season after those first sort of cameos looking sharp. He also looks motivated and he definitely looks gifted. Regardless of him arriving without that many senior goals to his name, you can already see what attracted United to him. His movement, his touch, his confidence. For me, they're all at the required level, and I can't wait to see him develop as a Manchester United player. Number 2, Casemiro refines form, or we turn to Amrabat. One of the things that helped turn United's fortunes around last season was the signing of Casemiro, and it felt like one of the biggest turning points in the kick that we had from him arriving. It was a slow start from him, but once he got going, he was absolutely sensational, and everything he did was simple, everything was intelligent, and he reminded us of what we had in Roy Keane. That's how impactful Casemiro was, and I don't want people to start revising history because of what he looks like at the moment. He brought a win-at-all-cost attitude and mentality, and with him, that's what's been missing this season, but that was what was missing from the club last season. His big tackles, his big goals, and so often he was a big player when United needed one. And I'd like to see him refine his form, but if he doesn't, you're going to have to switch it elsewhere. And this season he really hasn't found the same sort of form, and it hasn't felt the same with him. Now, of the United players to feature in the last, at least half of the last 10 games, only Wan-Bissaka has averaged more tackles per 90 than Casemiro. None of his teammates have been getting dribbled past by their opposition half as much as him, though, which is 2.4 times per 90. And I think a lot of that is because he's been asked to be a single pivot number 6. And I think all of us would agree that just on eye test alone, he's covering too much ground, probably makes it easy for him to be dribbled past. Now, in the Premier League alone, only Szoboszlai has been dribbled past by an opponent more, but unlike Casemiro, he's not a defensive midfielder tasked with being the last line of protection before a defence. He's not even looking after the ball particularly well either. You've got Bruno Fernandes with 76%, Eriksen with 82%. They're not really breaking passing accuracy records. They're very, very ordinary pass completion. And Casemiro of 83.4% being the deeper lying midfielder, you would think he would be the one that would have, high 80s, maybe 90% pass completion, while the others are looking for high risk, high reward passes. He's averaging around 10 misplaced passes per game, and the concern with him is that the area of the pitch that he loses the ball is often a critical area of the pitch and leaves United open to being transitioned on. If United work out how to get Casemiro back to the level that he was at last season, it's going to make a massive difference. If they can't do that, can they bring Amrabat in to be the deep-lying playmaker? Amrabat ranked joint third among midfielders for tackles at last year's World Cup, and he led the way for possession regains. In his time at Fiorentina, we've seen how much of an in-possession monster he is. But in the 26 recoveries in the final third that he did at the World Cup was also extremely, extremely high. In Serie A, that 89.3% pass accuracy is where you want the likes of Casemiro to be. He was only battered by 4 midfielders in Serie A last season. Another option could be lining Amrabat and Casemiro together, giving greater protection, putting a lot of quality in one area of the pitch for United, and meaning that there's less reliance on the defensive reliability of Casemiro. Number 3. You got to get your players back from injury. Now, all teams get injured, or at least that's what people say. But when we've mentioned it as an excuse for poor form, I think it's justified. And I think the way that people have belittled United, you're missing blah, blah, missing an entire defence. An entire defence. Just ask Liverpool fans. They may not have had a lot of them in the 2021 season, but they did lose a lot of their senior centre-halves at the same time for a significant chunk of the campaign, and it absolutely derailed their season. It ended up them almost missing out on top 4. United's problem at the moment at centre-half is as bad, but also we don't have any left-side fullbacks that we can call on. With Luke Shaw out, Malacia out, Reguilon all sidelined, Amrabat's been filling in there. And the effects of which are seeing him struggle at sometimes being an unfamiliar role. And we're not getting a 10 out of 10 Amrabat because he's having to sort of deputise and learn a different position in an area of the pitch that he's relatively unfamiliar with. And across the defence, there's been the absentees. So Amran Wan-Bissaka's out. You're missing genuine world-class talent in Martinez and Rafael Varane. They've played 197 minutes together. But you've even had star signings, Mount and Hojlund missing part of the season with Knox. And then obviously you've had Anthony and Jadon Sancho for different reasons. Those situations haven't helped. Few managers ever get a full squad available to them at all times, right? That's a given. But few have ever had to cope with what Ten Hag is coping with at the moment. We are so deficient in so many areas of the pitch. I think as soon as we get our first choices back, you will see United start to play with an identifiable style of play. 4, become less transitional. A staple of United, but we simply don't have the play styles for this to flourish, particularly because of how defensively unstable we are. But we need to be less open and get more control in our games. We give the opposition way too much confidence, and it goes all the way back to the first game of the season against Wolves, where you're like, wait, what is going on here? They're steaming through the middle. They're running through us like there's nothing in there. And I think just going back to basics a little bit, not losing games before we go and win games would be a massive one. Direct and transition heavy play encourages the middle third to go long and the attacking third player to pursue the 50-50 and 1v1 channel runs. Problematic. Heavy strain on the defence because of that constant 1v1 nature of what they're dealing with, the end-to-end nature. It puts strain on them because they're constantly running. It puts strain on the midfield because they're doing mileage up and down. Look how easy it is sometimes when Manchester City are playing and they've got all of the control, all of the ball, all the possession, and they can quickly recover something because it's players are setting in position. They're not exhausted running backwards and forwards all the time. We're exposing our defence to third-man runs, to counter presses, to being bypassed with 1 or 2 passes, the cutbacks coming back to the edge of the box because we're unable to get the recovery runs right in the mix there. And then, of course, there's individual mistakes. There's people not performing. There's people out of form. There's not really reliable movement patterns. And all of the things that's happening when we're not playing well with the ball is putting pressure on us without the ball, and every lost ball that United get at the moment, there's a little bit of panic in the air that it might lead to a shot on goal. And finally, make Old Trafford a fortress. And you're responsible for this as much as I'm responsible for this, as much as Ten Hag and the lads are responsible for this. Now, obviously, you've got to integrate your new signings. You've got to ensure that the belief is there. United need the home to be a place of dominance and good vibes and good energy. Dropping points at home is a recipe for disaster. And one of the excellent things Ten Hag instilled last season was a solidarity with the fan base. And despite the anti-Glazer ownership protest at all times, there was a rapport. And I feel like with some of the players, with what's happening with Sancho, with Greenwood, with Anthony, with the form, with some of the issues over what's going on with the likes of Maguire, with the constant flux and change of what's going on with the ownership, I feel like there is an irritation in the fan base at the moment. And rather than having a stoic nature about us when we concede a goal, the fan base is pissed off. And it's translating on the pitch. We only lost once at home in the Premier League last season. But after the defeat to Palace, we have already lost twice at home in the league. And obviously going down to Brentford, it looked like we were going to be on a string of defeats at home. And the atmosphere inside the ground is not great. It isn't confident that you're going to get back into the game. It feels like you're like, fuck's sake, we're going to lose again. Possible mitigations for this. We've had 4 different centre-half partnerships in the first 7 Premier League matches of the season. But there is time. United could go undefeated at home right now and make a massive difference to where we finish this season. The last team to win 9 points from the first 7 matches, although they had a better goal difference and finished inside the top 4, was United in the 1920 season. We went on to win only 4 points from the next 4, and we still qualified for Champions League by the end of the season. So all is not lost, but we do have to start putting a run together. And Ten Hag can't afford a similar set of results from Sheffield United, City and Fulham in United's next fixtures. That can't be allowed to happen. But hopefully with the injuries lessening, the likes of Amrabat and Mount being restored into midfield, some of the centre-halves coming back into play, we can turn this thing around. Anyway, cheers for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts. I'll see you in the next one. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.